takeaways here. Number one, you get a view for every work style. So, your team, the way you're working, how each of your teammates is working may be different. You may have different priorities. And so at the very top of the session, we're going to refresh on this concept of views, where you can empower each of your teammates to look at your information in different ways. So in today's session, we'll actually have the opportunity to create a view together, a number of different views together. Number two, it's a real-time single source of truth. So Airtable acts as that central place that all that key information can live. And it doesn't matter where in the world you are. We've got folks from all over the map here today. Michigan, Sweden, Chile. So we're all going to be collaborating or have the opportunity to collaborate together. And it's very, very exciting that all of those updates are sort of happening in that same place. And then number three, you can share with every stakeholder. So you might have some key information that you're tracking in Airtable. Maybe you want to share all of that information. Maybe you want to share just part of that information to make sure that folks are looped in, they have the relevant key details that are important to them. And so we're going to talk through ways that you can actually share and collaborate with stakeholders across your team. Great. So thanks to everyone that have shared those, answered those questions I asked at the beginning. Let's end that and let's take a look. I'm going to share these results here. So number one looks like got a mixture of confidence. So wherever you're at, just keep that in mind, and we're going to hopefully boost that confidence by the end of the session here today. And then number two, it looks like most folks haven't collaborated in Airtable before, and that is just fine. That's what this session is all about. You'll have the opportunity to do that and see what's possible. Now, it looks like maybe a couple of you have recently started collaborating, and so you can always take this back and bring this back to your team or invite them to this session later on. Awesome. So thanks again, everyone, for sharing that context. Really helps us sort of better understand where everyone's at. Now, how are we going to accomplish this? So we've got our checklist here today. We've got three key questions, or three key areas that we're going to be covering. Number one, inviting your entire team. So we'll walk through all the ways that you can add your teammates, your number of different options there, depending on your needs, depending on your preference. Then once you've invited your team, how do you communicate? How do you work together in real time, all within the same base? And then number three, we'll share with transparency. So how do we get clarity, surface the most important details, customize those details to suit exactly what we need to share, and we'll talk through that as well. And as mentioned, this is an interactive session, so we'll have interactive exercises at each of these steps, and I'll let you know exactly when those are happening. But again, feel free to watch along with me, and I will let you know sort of when we're jumping in. Now, some quick tips if this is your very first training with us. We will be sending the recording of the session next business day, so you can always watch this back, share this with your team, or you can always invite them to a future session as well. Next, keep asking those questions in the Q&A. Always here to clarify those questions. So I'll be keeping a close eye on both of those, but Zach is also here, an Airtable expert. He'll be here to answer those questions as those come up. And then lastly, share your thoughts in chat throughout. So let me know in the chat if you're planning on collaborating with me today. Would love to see who's excited about that and who plans to jump in. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and reshare my screen here. Just let me know in the chat. A quick yes. I know I'm excited to sort of dive into this. Let's do it. So I'm going to go ahead and share here. We've navigated to the base that we're going to be collaborating in just a couple minutes. I want to make sure that everyone is oriented. Everyone's really clear on how this is structured before collaborating here. And so in our example, in this example, we are putting ourselves in the shoes of a content team where we manage content creation requests. So we've got 4 projects here, and each project has a status, priority, key information such as dates, tasks, content type, notes, budget, all those key details you want to track. Now, we also have a list of tasks as well, or a table of tasks, and we can see which project each of these tasks are associated with, along with a checkbox to let us know, hey, this task has been completed. Now, with each team and within each team, different stakeholders have different priorities, right? Coordinators may have a vested interest in important dates. So we've got the start date, the due date. Managers may want to stay on top of the project priority, or all teammates have a vested interest in understanding the overall status of a given project. And so at the very top of the session, and I know I mentioned it just a couple minutes ago, views can be used, sort of a tongue twister there, as the foundation for strong collaboration, since it allows you to look at your information in different ways. What is a view? Well, it's a way that you can customize and save the information that you're looking at, different ways that you can customize and save that information. So let's customize this view right now, just to refresh on what's possible. If you're brand new to Airtable, just to sort of make sure we're all on the same page, because it's going to become essential a little bit later in our training. So let's say that I wanted to look at these projects in order of due date. I wanted to see just the high and medium priority. I wanted to group this by status. And I'd also only like to see the essential details here. Not all of the, although it's important that we know what content type it is or the notes, I don't need to see that at a glance. So let's customize this. So I'm going to bring everyone's attention to this toolbar here, where we can hide fields, filter, group, sort, color. We can adjust the row height if we'd like, maybe making this tall or medium. Now, I'm going to sort and pick a field to sort by and sort by due date. So what we'll notice here is this is now sorting in order of due date. Let's say that I move this due date to the 30th. It's going to automatically sort our due dates in that chronological order. Now, you could also sort by alphabetical or whatever it is that you're planning on sorting. It's a way to start to customize this. Next, I'd like to see these different projects in sort of buckets, right? In their different groupings. What status is each of these falling into? So group, pick a field to group by, and group by status. We're just using the information that we have here. We have the status field, we have these date fields. It's just the information that's already built in. Now, I want to, there's a lot of details here, so let's go ahead and hide some of this information. Maybe we can hide the start date, we can hide the image, and I'm just selecting this and toggling these off in visibility. Notes, great. So now at a glance, I'm seeing just those essential details. And then that final piece around priority, I only want to focus on high and medium priority in this specific view. So let's add a filter where the priority is any of high or medium. And what you'll notice is this low is toggled off, and that's because it sort of hides it from this view. It's filtering it out. And with a filter, you can focus on a specific subset of records based on a custom criteria. And this criteria here is high or medium. So just wanted to refresh on how you can use views in this case, but we've got to save this, right? So this is currently called all projects. Let's call this high and medium pri. That is the name of this view. Now, we open up this drop down, we can see all of our views. And we've got a couple views here, which we can look at in just a second. But I'm going to go ahead and open up and add a new grid view. I'm going to call this all projects. And what you'll notice is that our toolbar here is no longer activated. It's sort of fresh start. We've got all the details, the same underlying details that we started with just a moment ago. And if we go back to high and medium pri, it sort of saves that configuration for us. And so views, as mentioned, right, are different ways of looking at your information that you can customize and save. Now, we mentioned that teammates may have different priorities, right? A coordinator may want to stay on top of important dates. So a calendar view, which is just a different type of view, may be a great fit. Now, this gives you sort of details into each of your projects. It looks like here, looks like our start date is after our due date, so it actually is flagging that to us. So let's go ahead and adjust that so that's making a bit more sense. We can adjust, drag and drop to adjust and reschedule some of these ranges here. And all that's going to update across each of our different views. Now, Maybe you want to stay on top of the priority buckets, right? So let's take a look at this project priority view. Just a different type of view. It's a Kanban style view. And just re-emphasizing, right, that different views kind of help you surface that same information just in different ways. So you can see, okay, we've got 1 in high, 2 in medium, and 1 in low. And so if I make this change, if I say, hey, publish blog post actually low priority, and I move this into that bucket, it's going to update across all our other views. So let's take a look at what all projects looks like, for example. Great, so we can see that it's now got a low priority status, and we'd expect it to actually be filtered out of this view, right? Because it no longer has that priority. So let us know if you have any questions on this, sort of recapping, refreshing on views. Just, again, this will become a bit more essential if you're jumping and building some views out together. But I want to jump over to our task table now. And it looks like we've got one view in here, and we are grouping by our projects. So we have these key projects that we're working on, and the tasks are being grouped by those projects. Now I want to ask a question now that we sort of refreshed on views. How do I create a view that shows just completed tasks? So again, we have the options here to hide or filter or group or sort. So any guesses in the chat, let me know, how would I show just completed tasks in a view? Getting some guesses here. Right, awesome. So we've got a guess from Maria, Thomas, Donna. Filter, yes, absolutely. So if you guessed filter, if you were thinking of filter in the back of your mind, absolutely, you're right on track. So let's do just that. We're going to add a grid view, and I'm going to call this completed. It's the name of this view. We'll add a filter where complete is checked. And so that filters down and just surfaces those key tasks. See a question from Thomas: when sharing a view with external users, can that be limited to certain views and settings? So yeah, absolutely. We're going to cover sharing in our final step of today's session, but you can absolutely share the views that you create, and you can customize and tailor those settings for each of your different views. So hopefully that answers that on a high level, but we'll absolutely be digging into that great question though. And let us know if we can clarify that further. So filtering, we've just added a filter here where complete is checked. Let's create the inverse. Let's create sort of our to-do list, right? So we'll call this tasks to complete, and where the complete is empty. So let's test this out. If I've just said, hey, you know what? I actually wrote blog 1. I'm going to check that off. Filters out of this view. If we take a look at our completed view, we now see blog 1 is visible. Great. So we've refreshed on views. And again, we'll see how this sort of ties into what we dive into in our checklist today. I'm going to open that up. Let's refresh on those 3 major steps. First, we're going to invite. Next, we're going to talk about communicating. And then lastly, we'll share. And so Thomas hopefully will cover that question as well in that final step. Now, the first real essential step is to add our teammates, to invite our teammates, get them collaborating in this space together. And so we'll first dive into invite. So let's do just that. Now, in order to accomplish your team's working goals and objectives, you need them. You may need multiple stakeholders to actually dive in and collaborate directly within this space, right? To actually work on and check off and complete some of these different tasks. And so to start doing that, navigate to our share button here in the top right corner. This opens up our share dialog. And now the first question you really want to ask yourself is, all right, what is that right level of access? What permission do I want to give my teammates? And so when you open up this button here, we've got some different options, ranging from creator, editor, commenter, or read only, depending on what you want them to be able to do. And these are a bit self-explanatory when you look at them at a glance, but obviously there's a lot of, there may be some nuance depending on what you'd like them to accomplish within the base. And so if you want them to just see all of the information in the base that you're adding them to, read-only may be a great fit. We've got commenter, where you can add comments to different records. We're going to cover comments in a later step here, so you'll be very familiar with that by the end of this session. An editor can edit records and views, which we've covered, but they can't build out and configure tables and fields. And then the most level of access here, where we can add a collaborator, is at that creator level, where they can fully configure and build out the base, adding tables. We've got projects and tasks, but they may want to add additional tables here. So let's stick with creator. The next step is around, how do we invite them? We've got two options. We can invite by email, or we can invite by a link. So invite by email is great if you have a specific, few individuals you'd like to invite, maybe one or two close teammates. So I'm going to go ahead and add my teammate Sohil here. Just typed in their email, and I can fire this away. I've set this to creator level permissions. So let's go ahead and send that invite. So now what we see at the top here, so we've got 3 collaborators that can see this space when signed in. Now, the other way we can invite folks to the space here is to invite by a link. And so I'm going to adjust this to editor level access, and we can allow this to a specific domain. Maybe you want to keep this, making sure that we keep this within our organization, or we can allow any email address. And so let's go ahead and create this link now. And what this does is I can copy and paste this in a message, in an email, and so anyone that selects this link is added to the base at the editor permission level. And so I'm going to go ahead and paste this in our chat here for folks to join in. And again, do sign into Airtable. You got to be signed in to join into the base. I do want to note again, by participating, your name and email may be visible to the group as well. So just want to reiterate that. So pasting that in, feel free to join in. We're going to hang out here for just a couple minutes and dive in on some interactive exercises, how to collaborate together in Airtable. So I'm going to leave that up for just a couple minutes. But while folks are joining in, I'll jump back to our workspace level. And so we'll notice that we see this number 3 here. We can see this number sort of going up as folks are joining in. Now we've got 4. Great, welcome, excited to have you joining. We've been focused in on this creative project space, and I selected the Airtable logo in the top left corner to go to our home screen. And so bases are organized, the space here is organized in a workspace. And so we've got a couple different levels of access. You can add folks as base collaborators, which means they get full access to a single base, or you can add them as workspace collaborators. And so if I select the share button here, I see my name and Aaron's name, and this means that we have access to all of the bases in this workspace. And a workspace is just a collection of projects that is shared across your team. So just trying to figure out what that right level is. Just want to make sure it's clear that those are 2 different levels that you can sort of choose from when collaborating. So looks like we've got 5 base collaborators in here. Welcome to the base. Very excited to have you join. Let's jump back to our checklist here. We covered different permission levels: creator, editor, commenter, read-only. We invited by email and by link. We've completed our first exercise, joining the base, and we're also collaborating. We talked about collaborating at the workspace level as well. So next, let's actually start to communicate. Now that we're in this base, how do we start to work together? And so a really great way to sort of build on and strong collaboration is built on clarity of ownership. And so I'm going to need your help, those jumping in and collaborating with me, to complete a number of these tasks here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new view. Let's just call this our sandbox view. This is just sort of a sandbox. There isn't any filtering, grouping, just so that it's very clear what's going on here. And I want to introduce a new field type. and this will be a collaborator field type. So let's add that field, and we're going to clarify ownership at the task level. And so selecting this dropdown allows us to choose from tons of different types of fields. But in this case, the collaborator field type is what we're focused on. And what this does is it allows you to choose from one or more names from a drop-down list. And you can assign ownership to each of these tasks. So let's save that. And so now when I select in this cell here, I see all the collaborators that joined us for this training in this space. And so I can search my name. Maybe I want to assign ownership to myself. I can select and drag. These are the tasks that I've completed here. So we're very clear on each of those. But we've got lots of outstanding tasks. And so I'm going to go ahead and assign some tasks out to folks. Let me know in the chat if you'd like some additional tasks. But just to sort of experience what this is like to sort of get assigned a task, you should receive a notification letting you know, all right, I've been assigned these sort of specific tasks. You can also assign maybe multiple tasks here. Give a couple of these to Sohail. Let me know if you've received that notification, if you're sort of joining us in this space here today. But we definitely want to make sure it's very clear, how this is working. Awesome. Yep, Jonathan confirmed, received. Thanks so much for that. Now let's take a look again at this collaborator field. So a couple of ways to customize this. Number one, you can notify collaborators when they've been added. So that's exactly what that experience would be like if you're adding your teammates, adding them as owners in the collaborator field. You can always toggle this off if you'd like to reduce the noise on that. And you can also allow multiple collaborators within maybe the same field. So let's update that. Let's say that we're working together on, Aaron and I are working on this write blog posts project. We can represent that with multiple collaborators in that same field. But in this case, I'm going to stick with the individual owner, just so it's very, very clear. So looks like we got confirmation from Jonathan and Thomas that the notification was received. So it's great to see. So thanks so much for sort of working together, collaborating on these different tasks, and we're in our sandbox view. Now, as we mentioned at the beginning, views are that strong foundation of collaborating in Airtable. And so we created a couple views together, completed, task to complete, sandbox view. And so by default, views are collaborative. So what does that mean? Well, this icon here lets us know what kind of view we're working in. And so if I select this, it lets us know, hey, this is a collaborative view. And what that means is that collaborators with edit permissions or higher can change the view's configuration. And so for our next exercise, for those diving in and who are collaborating directly in this space, I invite you to go ahead and head over to the sandbox view. So you navigate there, you're looking at the same view that I'm looking at now. And go ahead and adjust any of these settings. And because you have edit permissions, you should be able to adjust this. So feel free to hide fields, filter, group, sort, any of those settings that we sort of refreshed on at the beginning. Great, so seeing some filtering, some sorting happening, adjusting the row height. Exactly. So this is exactly sort of what we're trying to demonstrate here, because if you've got multiple collaborators, this could get confusing fast because the way that you're looking at this information looks like it's being grouped by owner at this point is changing. And so instead of all having a single view that you're sort of jumping into, you can create some guardrails using a couple of different very powerful views. So let's jump back to our all task by project. Now, I really like this view because it gives us just a nice high level of the tasks that have been completed grouped by a project. And so selecting this drop down here, we can lock this view. And what that means is that, let's go ahead and enable this. It means that it will prevent anyone from editing the view configuration until it's been unlocked. And so it's asking, give me a little bit of context here. This is a team level view. Let's go ahead and lock this. And now we see this lock icon right next to the name of the view, just letting us know that if I go ahead and select this, I'm not able to adjust. Now, I have permission levels a little bit higher than editor, and so I am able to see this lock configuration. I can unlock these and relock them. So as an editor in this base, you won't be able to see that, but in your own bases, in your own workspaces, you should be able to see this locking of a specific view. So why do you want this? Why would you need this? Well, it's really useful for ensuring that when you jump into a team level view, you aren't seeing any unexpected changes, and it's not going to disrupt your team's workflow. Maybe you've set up an integration and you want to make sure that it stays the same, and it's really essential that it stays the same, so that it maintains that specific configuration. And so using a locked view is pretty essential in that case. And so you can't go ahead and change those details. Awesome. So we've dove into ways that you sort of maintain a team level view, but there may be I know it looks like Jonathan's already sort of reading my mind here, creating what we call a personal view. And so, we talked about how you can customize and allow folks to sort of feel empowered to create their own views. And so let's do that exact thing. Let's say that I wanted to stay on top of just my tasks. And so I'm going to add a grid view here. I call this Michaela's tasks, and introducing what we call a personal view. So let's select personal view. And what this does is it allows you to work exactly the way that you want with a view that only you can customize. And so if anyone was to jump into this view, they wouldn't be able to make any changes. Only I can make changes. And let's set this up so that the filter, the owner is myself. And so it's filtering down, showing me I've completed 4 tasks, which is great. But this could be a really great place to get a checklist and just get transparency in what you have to tackle. So the whole team is really clear, and each individual member is really clear on each of those tasks. So it brings us to our next exercise. Looks like I've got some tasks completing or uncompleting there, which is great. And let's go ahead, and I invite you now to go ahead and create a new view, hovering over grid view, naming it, based on, just to let us know that it's your personal view, and sort of customizing to fit your preference. So we'll take a moment here. It looks like we've already got Jonathan has a personal view here. Now, it doesn't look like we've adjusted this view. Jonathan hasn't adjusted this view necessarily, but you could always customize this, filter this down so that the owner contains Jonathan. Exactly right. So now you can see really clearly which tasks you need to complete and which projects those are involved in, since it looks like you've got a grouping here as well. So A+ for Jonathan here. Love that. And you've renamed it, so that's great. Now, Thomas, let's take a look at Thomas's view. Exactly, Thomas, so you're right on. And it looks like you've also included a color here where complete is checked. I love that. We've added a filter so that when Thomas is the owner, that surfaces as well. So this is really great to sort of get clarity across your entire team if you have lots of tasks in the pipeline, so that each teammate can get really granular on the tasks that they're owning. Now I can also toggle on and off personal views. So what we'll notice here, or looking at the sandbox view, selecting this toggle, it hides folks' personal views. Now Paula, I would recommend, this is great, you've created that view, feel free to select this drop down and select personal view. That way, when you do that on your end, it'll be your view. Yep, see, exactly. And now you can customize this, adding a filter where the owner is your name, and that will then sort of filter down to just your tasks. So A+ there. Awesome. So we've dove in, we've created some different views for our teammates, and we're getting really clear on which tasks we've got to accomplish. So how do we start to have conversations here? Can we have in-context conversations? And it even looks like someone's already started having a conversation here in this specific record, but I want to go to create inspiration board. This is the record that I want to focus on. It looks like Jonathan is the owner. And so I've expanded this. I sort of did that quickly, but we've got these two arrows here. What this does is it opens up a sort of card version, expanded record view of this specific task. And I want to bring everyone's attention to this bar here, a comment. So we can go ahead and drop a comment, have an in-context conversation about this specific task. And so since Jonathan's the owner, they will be notified. No worries, Jonathan. It's totally fine. I appreciate that. But I want to actually brainstorm a bit. I want to brainstorm with the whole group. So what inspires you? And so as I send that message, it actually should notify Jonathan, but I can also loop in Thomas on this. And so you can have in-thread conversations at the task level. You can also have these at the project level as well. Whatever sort of records that you've got going on here, you can absolutely have those conversations within those records. And let's copy this URL. I'm going to paste this in the chat. If you're navigating in the base, having a hard time finding this, you can go ahead and it's just create inspiration board. It's under the published blog posts. Thomas is inspired by coffee. That's definitely making me want another cup of coffee this morning. Love that. But you guys absolutely inspire me. These sessions inspire me. So yeah, feel free to drop a comment. We'll hang out here for just a moment as our next exercise. You can always just drop a test comment as well. But appreciate the conversation here as we're sort of diving in context. Maria, I'm learning a lot. I love to see that. Thanks so much for dropping a comment, having a conversation here. So let's close this out. Now, we can also see here this 5 lets us know, all right, we've got a conversation going on here. It looks like we've got one comment. And thanks for letting us know, Paolo. We can jump in and follow up on this. You can always mention someone, sort of loop them into the conversation as well. Really appreciate that. So let's recap on this step. We've covered a lot of ground here. We have communicated successfully. We assigned ownership, and we did that with the owner field and the collaborator field. We managed who can edit specific views. So we created locked views. We created personal views. And then lastly, we added a comment, and we sort of jumped in, got inspired with creating our inspiration board. So we're well on our way to completing that. So I appreciate everyone's participation there. So this final step sort of wraps up our session here today, but equally essential, right? You've been focused on collaborating within Airtable. So all of the sort of communicate step is really done best when you've added someone directly into Airtable. So let's go back to our all tasks by project view. And there may be instances where you want to share with stakeholders that are outside of Airtable. Because when you add a collaborator, they have access to the entire base, right? They can see all the different views, they can see across different tables, but you may just want to share a part of that information, just telling the essentials or surfacing those essential details. So I'm actually going to navigate to this completed projects or completed tasks view. So let's surface this to our larger team. We're working hard on all of these different tasks, but I just want to let everyone know what we've completed so that they've got transparency. And so in order to do that, we can create what we call a read-only link, which stays up to date as our information changes. And so where it says share view right here, we can select that, and we can create a shareable grid view link. Now, this is a read-only version of this exact view, and it also doesn't require a sign-in to actually access. So I'm going to copy this, also open this up here so we can preview this. I'll paste this in the chat. Now, anyone tuning in, I know we've got a number of folks just following along with us and are collaborating directly in the base. You can open this link. You don't need to be signed into Airtable. Anyone can access this link. and it's just a read-only version of this view, so you get the transparency of the details that are most important to you. Now, I do want to sort of emphasize and now ask those that are collaborating in the base that've got that to-do list, feel free to check off your tasks. And what we'll notice is that this list is going to get longer since we're going to have lots more check marks sort of appearing. So if you've got outstanding tasks, feel free to check those off. We can take a look here. Great, looks like it's getting a little bit longer here. We've completed eight tasks. Awesome. So what we'll notice as these tasks are being completed is that right now we've got 7. Now if I refresh this, it refreshes to 8. So any changes that we're making to this view are going to update. Let's say that maybe I wanted to hide the owner field, just in this case, and I refresh. I'm going back to the shared view. I refresh this, and now it updates. So it's a mirror of this specific view, gives you that transparency, and all within a single link. Awesome. So let us know if you have any questions there on that. One last sort of detail I want to dive in on this. Let's say that we want to capture new ideas from our teammates. Now, we can obviously add them directly as a collaborator, but one way that we can really expedite our pipeline of ideas back in our projects table is to capture that information in a form. And so selecting this dropdown, going to go ahead and add a new form view. And what this is a form version of this table where you can drag and drop to create a custom form that anyone can submit to and directly add records to this table. And so I want to create a form for new project ideas. And we've got lots of details here. We don't need all of these at the sort of ideation stage. So what I like to do when building a form is remove all of the fields, selecting this top corner here, and sort of just drag and drop the essentials. So I would like the idea name, maybe the content type, and any notes. Great. And I can also customize this so it's a list. And maybe I want to adjust this so that it's a little more tailored to this form. Awesome. So this is coming together here. Let's go ahead. It's same sort of steps. Share form. It's very similar to our shared link. You don't need to be signed into Airtable to access this form. I'm going to copy this and paste this in our chat. So anyone that's interested, feel free to submit a new idea. That sort of brings us to our final exercise for today. I'm going to preview this and I'll submit an idea. Best new training. And it'll be a podcast training and all the, let's submit that. So let's take a look at what this looks like. We should have some new ideas sort of appearing here. We can see, all right, best new training appeared, the content type, and the notes. But of course, we haven't defined the budget. We haven't defined those subtasks necessarily. But now I can build this in and say, hey, this is now upcoming. This is a high priority project, etc. And so feel free to sort of submit to that form. Test that out just to see what that experience is like. And we should have some new ideas populating into our base here. Awesome. And again, you can share this link. Let's go back to new project ideas. You can share this link with any of your teammates. And also restrict with a password, restrict to an email domain if you want to make this a little bit more secure or keep it internal. And then you can also embed this form in your site. So maybe you're creating a form for new applications or something like that. Populate new ideas using this form. Take a look at all projects. How do we consume more coffee? Love it. So this could absolutely be a creative podcast that we could create. Let's build that back into our creative projects pipeline. Awesome. So let's take a look at our checklist here. We've done it. We've shared. So we shared a view externally. We shared just a part of the information that was essential, in this case, just our completed tasks. And so we shared that information out in a read-only version using a shared view link. And then we also created and shared a form populating new ideas. And so we sort of dove into that. Let's check that off in our final step. So I want to bring back that question that we asked at the very, very beginning around confidence. Where is your confidence at now that we've sort of dove in on collaborating in Airtable? I'll launch that poll. Please take a moment. Really, truly appreciate feedback on this. Jumping back to our deck here, how confident are you now in collaborating in Airtable? We covered inviting, so we talked through all the ways that you can invite your teammates, adding them into the base by email or by link. We talked about communicating, so we added a comment, added adding folks directly in as an owner or collaborator. And lastly, just better understanding how to work with folks that are maybe outside of your base as well, sharing that key information. So I'll leave that up for the rest of the time. Thanks so much for everyone submitting your feedback. Hopefully you've boosted your confidence. Now, I do want to emphasize, if you do have additional questions, I'm going to hang out here to answer those questions, but you may have more more questions down the line, so you can always reach out to our team at support@airtable.com. You can also join our trainings, additional trainings at airtable.com/webinars. So this session was all about collaborating. If you were just getting started in an Airtable, you want a high-level overview, we also do a session. We're hosting one later today called Get Started Faster. We have a number of those sessions available throughout the week, so feel free to join us for that. We build out a base that looks exactly like this, or pretty similar to this, and we'll sort of jump into how it's actually structured and how to create in Airtable in that way. And so to join that session, just head over to airtable.com/webinars, and you should find that session to sign up. Awesome. Now, let us know if you have any questions. Liz, excited to see if you're interested in that session. Hope to see you there. Great. So I'm going to hang out here. Let us know. Looks like, thanks so much, Zach, answering a handful of questions throughout this session. And thank you to those that have submitted those. This was really, really fun. Let me know if you do have questions. Feel free to drop them in the Q&A. Now I'm more than happy to go back on any of these steps. And again, if you're brand new to Airtable, feel free to join us. Join us for an additional session. A question from Thomas: how does one send feedback? So great question. Feel free to respond to. We're going to follow up with the recording of this training. You can reach out to us at education@airtable.com. So that'll route directly to our team, or you can respond to the email we're going to send out with the recording. Either way, really do appreciate that, Thomas. Great. So if there aren't any additional questions, really appreciate Maria, Jonathan, Thomas, Liz, everyone tuning in here today. This was an absolute blast, and I hope to see you at a future session. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.